It is completely terrible, absolutely unbearable, unfair, unreal. Not my life. I cannot believe the degree to which this is horrible. Ah, it is so awful. The degree of helplessness I feel. If you have ever had a person who's very close to you, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a child, maybe it's another relative who is in the mental health system because they need help, and yet your hands are tied. You can't help them. And everything I've been describing that I've been through, it's just absolutely horrific. And of course, I don't know if this has happened to you, but somehow when it rains, it just pours like, oh, awful, not beautiful, tender raindrops, but icy daggers. And at the same time, I'm going through all of this craziness where I cannot help the person I love. The other person I love, I'm also facing the end of a 9-year relationship. A relationship that well, that's probably a little too personal, but someone that I absolutely loved and still do. And it's not so much the fact that it has ended, but the way I was just completely shut down and disappeared with no resolve, no ending, no conversation. And the pain of that, coupled with what I'm going through, just feels absolutely flippin' unbearable. So here's the thing. When you're faced with this kind of stuff, you absolutely have to feel it. Like, I've had so much depression and so much anxiety and all the feelings, okay? Grief, helplessness, you feel like you're a victim, all the things. And at some point during the day, because I know these things cycle over and over until you can fully resolve them, I know intrinsically that the most painful things in life are gifts for us to unwrap and receive. And the first secret to doing so is that we have to accept what's happening. Remember the serenity prayer. We can't control so many things, and the more you resist it, the more painful it is. And then somehow, though, I don't know, when you surrender to it, the surrender just elicits so much deep grief and negative feelings too. But we do know that we have to let the feelings come up as energy and let them flow through us and not resist them. That's the way to making yourself completely mentally ill. And it's so crazy. I think it was Christopher Palmer actually that said, if you have something traumatic happen, like a relationship ends and you have no control over communicating with that person, if someone close to you is put into a psychiatric hospital and you cannot get any information about them to help them. That it's very good and healthy to feel completely devastated and depressed. That's a normal, natural, healthy response, right? And yet, I think it was Christopher that said in the DSM or something, some psychiatric evaluation or psychological evaluation, that if on day 14 you are continuing to feel depressed and despair, that then you have a diagnosable, like you're actually clinically deeply depressed or something like that. I don't know what the title is. And so here I am, about 14 days into this ordeal with the person I love having mental health issues, and 30 days into being shut down with no communication or resolve from a 9-year relationship. And am I still depressed? Yes. Do I come in and out of it? Kind of starting to come out of it. But the beautiful thing about moving up that scale of emotion, like the David Hawkins scale, is that you move from apathy to grief, and then terror, fear. And then anger comes, and anger has so much energy in it, and it can be so beneficial because it's empowering. And for example, making these videos and creating a support group and creating a newsletter and starting to ask more and more questions, reading and studying even more than I have in the last 10 years, because pain must be turned into purpose in order for it to be worth the price. It's just too much of a price to pay when you are excruciatingly in pain, or in excruciating pain, suffering is too great a price to pay without allowing it to turn into purpose and action and to help others. Being of service is almost always the answer to getting out of ourselves and our own suffering. And it can be so alienating, and every single day you will be judged, and you will be put into a box, you will be rejected, you will be told that you should blame the victim, and other people will blame you when you start talking about this stuff. And to stand up in the face of that as a human being and I guess it's like fighting for what's possible. I feel like I'm walking a razor's edge, because in the face of all of the bureaucratic red tape, all of the bullshit, all of the terrible barriers that are within the system, right in the face of this unbelievably painful heartbreak that I'm experiencing, not only because the person I love is suffering even more and delusional and cannot get help, but because of what I'm going through personally in this relationship. It feels like it's too much. And yet, on this razor's edge of unbearable pain, I know that there is this fabric of possibility. There is this fabric of the spirit of love, the spirit of God that is always present, I believe. And that the call is for us to go higher, than seeing and judging the appearance that's in front of us. That for me right now is complete heart devastation from losing someone that I really, really loved, and looking at the reality of what that relationship actually was. And also everything that's happening with mental health and wanting to help so desperately and not having the resources, and yet having to be more resourceful. All of these things, I believe, are happening for my good and forcing me to not only quit resisting what's happening, but to be the one who is willing to lean into the love of God and lean into the possibility of spirit and the beauty that somehow exists even in the face of whatever suffering we are going through, and to find a way to be kind to myself and not abandon myself in the way I have been rejected and abandoned, and not to abandon those who have so much stigma and so much judgment and so much misunderstanding, but to stand in the truth that something bigger than all of us is happening, and to be open to the possibility of healing, of growth, of kindness, of love and compassion. And that is a cycle. And I guarantee I'll be back in tears in 5 minutes. And yet all of it somehow keeps cycling all at once. And I just want you to know that the reason I am sharing all of this wild, crazy daily stuff is that I know that there have been so many moments that I had no one to talk to. And when I would attempt to, it's always, there's just so much judgment around it, you know, because people do not want to look at it. People don't want to have negative feelings. We are so conditioned to shut down the negativity, the difficulty, push it away. And that is the single most destructive thing that we can do. So it's kind of an ongoing cycle that you literally can go through every day. Denial, anger, acceptance, dropping the resistance, let go of the feelings, let them move through us. Come to a point where we lean in to the presence of love, to the presence of God, to the presence of possibility, and then breathe. Breathing is, I highly recommend it. Breathe and allow that greater something to come through. And almost always it will come through in the guise of service to humankind, our fellow humans, love, forgiveness, letting them go, letting the people that hurt us, let them go do their thing. Let them go be miserable or happy, or just, you know what? If they don't want me, then that's okay, right? Like, and if the system cannot provide for the people who really need and deserve help, then I will find a way to supply the help that they need. And these possibilities exist. We've got to move through all the feelings in order to exist in possibility. And I think one of the biggest challenges in our culture is that we absolutely don't welcome feelings and vulnerability. We don't do it. And we don't have community wherein we can process these things. So we have to create it. And yet we have more resources in terms of like technology and access to other humans than we've ever had before. And somehow we're so isolated and alone. So this is quite a rant, but I do so much want to help and help myself and help others. And we just do that one step at a time, leaning in to what's possible in spite of the pain and finding purpose in the pain, because life is expansion. It's not stagnation. And the pain almost always comes because we're resisting it. And we're holding on to these old clothes, and not embracing all of the new relationships, the new possibility, and the new growth that is necessary in order to create change. So here's the beautiful trees. I don't know if I can show you or not. You see all those lights? Let's just lean in to the lights. Lean into the light. Be the light. The light. The light. Lean into the light. I love you.